All right, cool. So, hey everybody, I'm Maxie, and we'll be talking about DNSSEC today, which is talking about DNSSEC. Real quick, show of hands, who here knows what DNSSEC is? Like, you know, you have an idea. Okay, cool. Who here has ever played with it at all, like given it a shot to install? Okay, what, did you succeed? That was the next question. Hit or miss? That's about average, which is part of why I want to do the talk. So, a little bit about me. As I said, I'm Maxie. I'm Thomas Clements. I work at Dell SecureWorks, so that's not relevant because I did this all on my own time. I've been doing this shit for 12 years. I guess I should jump to the bottom where this says this is rated PG-13. I will use foul language from time to time. It's just who I am. My first PhreakNIC was the same as Not Larry's. It was PhreakNIC 4. That was in, well, 12 years ago, obviously. I did speak at PhreakNIC 7 about my experience. I'd been in computers for about 3 years, so that experience was really stupid, or I guess ignorant. However, the talk went very poorly. I was very nervous. I am nervous now as well. I don't know. I don't do well at public speaking, and that's part of the thing. I had one, actually, during Aesthetics' talk. So. Thank you, baby. All right. All right, so why I'm here, as I just said. Actually, let me stop. I'll tell a joke. So, yeah, jokes are good because they make you less nervous. I want to relate to you people, and that's another part of this. Anyways, you people, yeah. You know what I mean. You know who you are. Okay. Pretty good, yeah. So I thought a lot about a good joke because, you know, you're supposed to tell a joke to kind of break the ice and get everybody on your side. And I looked, I mean, I Googled for jokes about DNS and, you know, not a lot out there. Yeah. Certainly not a lot with any kind of, you know, authority that I wanted to bring across or that would appeal across multiple zones. Sorry, I had to do that. So I did actually settle on a TCP UDP joke. And then, because it's relevant to DNS for those who know about DNS. And the more I thought about it, I realized that this joke, it really wasn't a joke as much as it was a sexist observation on my part. And that is that I've determined that men are like UDP and women are like TCP. And I can give you some examples. Men are very direct. They just want to get shit done, get it over with, and that's it. Whereas women, you know, they want acknowledgement. They want you to have an established relationship with you. And at least in my case, they may talk about a three-way, but all you ever get is a handshake. Okay. So, you know. All right, good. So the reason I wanted to do this talk was was mostly because I want you all to love me. Okay, for two reasons. One is because. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I want you to like me for two reasons. One, as I said, I sucked at giving a talk. I think I suck at giving talks, to be honest. All right, thanks. The second reason is because, well, I had just gotten this all done. DNSSEC was working for me, and WillPig's like, hey, call for papers for PhreakNIC, and I'm like, well, I just did this shit. You know, maybe I could talk about it, and it wasn't easy. And I realized that the more I can get this across to, the more people I can convince to try this, the better off the entire internet is. So I thought, who better than a bunch of geeks to try to get them to try and set up DNSSEC on their own. So let me make sure I covered everything in my freaking slide. Yeah, it wasn't easy. I got it all working as I thought and realized I'd missed an entire step and had no idea how it worked in the first place. There was no good documentation, just a second, that I could find online that covered every bit of the whole process. And so maybe I didn't, my Google Foo may have sucked, but I couldn't quite get, couldn't find it all myself and ended up having to piecemeal it all together from multiple sources. Yes? It's COM. Okay. It's MaxieZ.com is the one I was using. So, and I'll get into poor adoption. That's why I want you guys to help me adopt this. Get this out here. Get it working on the domains you have access to if you're willing. And finally, I want to say this is the most important slide of the whole damn talk. I am going to talk about DNS. I am going to talk about DNSSEC. You may not even like hearing about that. But what I do want you to know about is that if I die of a heart attack or lightning strikes me right here and now, you guys please go look at this. It's kind of fun, and it makes the whole thing better, right? So that's it. I am going to cover DNS, and I'm sorry. I imagine most people in the room know what DNS is and how it works, at least to the key point, but it's really hard to have this talk without talking at least about what DNS is. So it's a simple request and reply mechanism. It generally uses UDP. As I said, it's direct. It doesn't have established relationships, so it's very masculine. DNS is a core service of the internet, and I can't stress this enough. I did this talk once in a small setting just to kind of feel it out, and when we were done, I had people coming up to me going like, yeah, but how does it stop spear phishing? And I'm like, yeah, not at all. In fact, it might make sure that the spearfish can actually definitely get to you. Basically, anytime you go anywhere, how many people just surf the internet only by typing IPs? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, anytime you take a domain and it resolves to an IP, that's DNS doing that for you. And that happens all the time, every email, every Twitter, every web page. So. That's the most common example. These are a quick list of domain record types. I'm not going to read them off. They're up there for you. All of these are quite old except for the bottom one, which is the IPv6 IP address record. Sort of. All right, so this is a quick and overly simple picture of how DNS works. You want to go to Google, so you ask the root servers. Everybody familiar with the root servers? There's 13-ish of them. There's 13 names and 13 IPs. Yes. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, yeah. So they tell you where to go, who to go talk to about Google. And they say, go talk to ns1.google.com, which is represented by that. And then we go and we ask Google for an A record, and then it comes back with 1.2.3.4, whatever, okay? Makes sense? Any questions? Okay, thanks. So what's the problem with that? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Well, the problem is it's masculine, as I said. So there's no established relationship. It's all like, hey, what is it? Just like, hey, back. It's easy to spoof. It's easy to DDoS because of that lack of it. So you can spoof the IP, and then one box can send DNS queries to your DNS server from a bunch of different made-up IPs. And you really have no way to deal with that other than like filtering upstream and or lost my train of thought right in the middle of that. By filtering it upstream or shutting off your DNS server or something like that, which is usually not a good option. It does have TCP failover. If a packet is really big, it will try that. Some DNS resolvers will try TCP when UDP fails, but TCP is really not a good solution to the problem because it has a lot of overhead. Those women like to talk a lot. So, as they're setting up the established relationship and all that overhead makes the entire conversation a lot more noisy, and because of that, it would make the internet slow down that much more. So DNS clients really have no means of validating that's right. They have a nonce in the request. It's 16 bits, and that is the only authentication currently going on. That was added later, even after the original protocol. And then I want to bring up a DNS changer. This was a botnet that was shut down in July of this year. It's a little off topic because really this DNS sec doesn't really stop host file changes. However, it does. This was a botnet that went around changing the IPs in your host file and sent people all over the internet to various locations. So you would think you were going to Google and it would send you to some website that they chose, and you could spam you, infect you with malware, whatever, and you had so obviously there's value in changing your DNS. And so DNS cache poisoning. DNS cache poisoning is simply when we ask the name server, we say, who's Google? It says go to ns1.google.com. We say, hey, give me the A record, which is IP. An attacker sends a reply. Google sends a reply too, but if the attacker comes in first and has a correct nonce, then there's no real way for your DNS server to know the difference. And so you end up, your DNS server, your local DNS server, and or your computer, depending on how you're doing it, ends up holding bad information. And because DNS is cache, it can hold that for a little bit of time. Depending on how many people share your DNS server, that could be, a day, however much they set the attacker sets your TTL. And so he can end up stealing all the traffic destined for a site and sending it to the IP of his choosing. Did anybody see the on the network on the data talk yesterday? Yeah, that he was talking about layer 2 stealing, your ARP, and I'm sure people know about that kind of manipulation you can do on a local network. This is kind of manipulation you can do on TCP/IP, up the next level. Any questions on that? I'm gonna talk a little bit more about cache poisoning, but the flow. Okay. I like this question. Raise your hand if you were born after 1990. Anyone? No? Would you mind standing up? Thank you. His entire life, DNS cache poisoning has been an issue. All right, you can sit down. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out, how crazy that an attack, a threat like that could go on for. I think I explained that well enough. Dan Kaminsky at Black Hat in 2008 had been studying a botnet. I don't remember which one. It was communicating over DNS, and as he was looking into this, he began to realize there were a lot of problems with the way we were doing DNS at that time. And those problems were mostly around the fact that 16 bits, we're doing 16 bits of random entropy on virtual machines, and we're not getting a lot of entropy. And so it was very easy to do this DNS cache poisoning, as well as the source IP on several of these were also used as a factor, the source port, sorry. And the source port was often 53, even the same port you would use to query DNS in the first place. So everyone kind of freaked out that year. I don't know if you were paying attention. And everybody was like, oh my God, we need DNSSEC. Where is it? This is terrible. Let's get this shit solved. This is terrible. And then everybody went out and fixed it, and it's no longer an issue. So yay. No, I'm kidding. That didn't happen at all. We kind of fixed some of that random number generation. We changed the source ports around, and then we all just went back to sleep. So how does DNSSEC help? What DNSSEC does in an overview is asymmetric cryptography, and it signs the records. So that when you get them, you can get a public key, and it's signed by the private key, and you can confirm that the record that you get is valid. That's all it does. There's no CIA, there's no confidentiality in that, right? It's only integrity and, non-repudiation, I guess, or repudiation, whatever it is. This was originally created in '97, and it kind of really sucked. The design was kind of backwards, and so they redid it in 2004 to kind of make it a little less sucky, not really relevant. It introduces four new record types: the DS record, which is essentially a hash of the DNS key. There's two DNS keys. I'm gonna get into that in a minute. There's the RRSIG and the NSEC. These were the original ones. There's also an NSEC 3, but that's not. We'll get into that in a second too. The RRSIG is what actually signs the zones, or the record types. So your A record would have an RRSIG. You have a zone signing key, and you have a key signing key. And the zone signing key signs the record and puts an RRSIG. And the key signing key signs your zone signing key. I know that's convoluted and stupid, and it'll make sense in a minute. Okay, so another important thing to understand is a trust anchor, and you can think of this as kind of like the CA that you trust. You gotta trust somebody, right? And so the idea of this is that you trust the root, meaning the 13 root level name servers, if you will. So what you end up doing is you end up trusting that key. And it signs down a chain that I'm going to show you in a second, all the way down to the RRSIG record that you get. So the key signing key and zone signing key are both DNSKEY types. See if there's anything else on here I need to cover before I move on. Yeah, and the DS records are their hash is like SHA-1 of the key signing key. All right, so this is a picture. Can everybody see that? I break this up into two parts. Raise your hand if you can't read all of that. Okay, thank you. Well, you're in the front row, so awesome. Okay, good. All right. Thanks, Johnny. No. You don't really have to read the words, but I do want to. I'm going to get into a little bit. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is my domain, maxyz.com. And you see I have the gray box at the top is the DNS key. The algorithm means the, yes?
Can we ignore that right there?
Yes, but it's not really classified. I just didn't label it. Okay. I just did it on my work computer. That's all. Oh, no. This is all my stuff. They don't care. maxyz.com, I can assure you they don't know that domain. So the gray key at the top is just the key signing key for my domain. The key signing key for my domain. These are both zone signing keys. One is active, one is not, and the reason for that is so that they can roll over. And so what ends up happening is because DNS caches everything on the other end, you don't want to have a bad chain where it's cached incorrectly. And then these are the records that I have that are signed there. And then going up, this is the part from here up, where I was just at, here. No? Okay. Well, I'm trying to show you both, right? So this is the very top root. Let me get a laser pointer. So this is the root. This is my trust anchor. This is a trust anchor. You see the little loop? That means it's a trust anchor. So this is the, damn, I keep saying it wrong. The key signing key, zone signing key, the DS for the zone below it. Key signing key, zone signing key, DS for the zone below it. Make sense? Any questions about that? So that's how you establish your trust. You have to have the trust anchor on the resolving name server. It signs, it gets a hash of it has the key. It then signs, it trusts it all the way down to confirm that the public key was signed all the way down. Any questions? Okay. I want to quickly go over these two flags. This is part of the protocol, and it's a little technical, but the DO is DNSSEC OK, which means, hey, I'd like to do DNSSEC. Instead of having to ask for the RSIG records and the DS records, that one flag tells the DNS server that you want to go up the chain doing DNSSEC. And then you have the AD, which stands for Authenticated Domain, and that's a bit that's set in the reply that says, not only here's your domain information, but I also validated that it is correct. So useful for you to know. Talk about adoption. The root, meaning the very top dot, was signed in 2010. So that's 2 years after Black Hat. So it took that long before we could even actually have a chain of trust all the way down. The TLDs, I got this in October. I pulled a report. You see October 17th, there were 94 top-level domains that were signed. In July, there were 89. So we're getting about 5 every 3 months. I figured I did some math. At this current rate, we'll have them all signed in 11 years. So good stuff. Most of the ones for the U.S. domains are signed. .com signed, EU signed. .mil was recently signed this year. Let's see. The ones that aren't, that you might run into, are like .tv, .mobi. .name isn't signed, but the rest of them are, and the rest of them that really need to be signed are like Russia, right? So lots of foreign domains that need to be signed. So when you get down to who's actually using this, well, I can't find much. I'm running a tool called DNSSEC Validator. Yes, this DNSSEC Validator for Firefox and Chrome, and it will basically show you that you got a trusted domain when you go to a web page. And so I've been running this for a while, and granted I don't surf every part of the internet because that would get me in trouble with my wife. But so some of the domains that I do see out there on the internet that are signed are defcon.org. Very important domain to have defcon.org signed. Not that nothing against DEFCON. I love DEFCON. We're a DEFCON shirt. But not financial business impacting to the internet at large. Comcast.net, and I want to give a shout out to Comcast in general. They are very forward thinkers over there. They're doing IPv6. They're heading the pack as far as cable goes, as far as I'm concerned.
6 strikes, you're out.
6 strikes? What does that mean? Okay. They're also got a DNSSEC resolver already, and they've done their domain. So I don't think they did Comcast.com, They did Comcast.net. So, Debian.org, that's actually a useful one. IANA.org, and then MaxiZ.com. So, All right. So who's not signing their domains? Well, I can't find anybody else signing their domains. You go to banks. I tried finding every bank I could think of. None of them had DNSSEC. I tried, Gmail, Google, other big forward thinkers on the internet. Nobody's signing their zones. Yahoo is signed? Yes. Okay. I have not seen that, but and I believe I've checked that, but I'll check again. Maybe I'm confusing the DNSSEC with the DKIM. Oh yes, that is totally different. Okay. Yeah. No, they are not. They are not signed. Okay, so why isn't everybody jumping on this bandwagon? And while I'm trying to get you guys to do this, I want to tell you, I want to be honest with you. I want you to know why, it might be a little hard. First of all, and the big one is money, right? It always is. So, and the money issue is on several factors. If it's my domain and it's my time, it's my energy, it's really not expensive at all. If you're talking about redesigning your infrastructure at work and you have, 20 name servers, that might take some time and effort. Also, if you are supporting a huge number of domains. Let's say you are a hosting company like the one Johnny and I used to work at that had like millions of domains. How much crypto horsepower are you going to need to sign 1 million domains? It can be quite extensive. So there is some cost to that. If you're talking about hosting or doing DNS for something with, I'd say more than 2,000 records, you may want to look into getting a cryptographic card on board or something, if you want to try this. There's a vulnerability that came out about INSEC, and it's a pretty obvious vulnerability. When you actually ask for a domain that doesn't exist, you want to have a signed response that says it doesn't exist. However, you don't want a signed response that says nothing here, because then you could just replay that all the time, and somebody would say, I want to see Google, and you'd be like, nothing there. So it would essentially lead you to a client-side DOS, I guess, as it was. I'd never heard of that before. I just made that up. INSEC, and so what they did instead is they enumerate the zone, and they go from, let's say it's A.com, and then you go to C.com. So when you look for B.com, you get a response that says, a signed response that says, there's nothing here until C.com. Okay? So the problem was, by going through the entire zone, you could quickly figure out what was all in the zone. Some people feel that that's bad. They want to put public information into their internet-facing DNS. Just lost sound. Okay, there we go. Okay. That's a bit of a problem, and I've heard some companies out recently who they've had some sensitive private information in their DNS. So it can happen that that is a concern to you, and if that's the case, there's a solution called INSEC 3, though I'll be talking about that here because the tools I'm using don't support it. But what it does is it hashes that response and says, then there's nothing here until the SHA-1 hash of C.com, which is essentially useless to anyone looking at it, but it gives you an answer that can't be replayed. Cool? Registrar support. Well, domain support first. As I said, we've only got, 94 TLDs? I think since I did that report, there was one more. I think it was Malaysia got into the root. So if you got a Malaysia domain, you're solid. Yeah.
Why couldn't you replay that? If the hash is nobody here until X.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know they fixed it with INSEC 3. I can't quite recall. And when you're asking me questions and I'm nervous, I can't think, so I can't really. I can't solve problems.
This man needs alcohol. I said that earlier.
Yeah, in my talk at PhreakNIC 7, someone asked me a question about why can't we store passwords encrypted on the server and then decrypt them and then use salt, and I was just like, you're a freaking genius, that's the most amazing thing. Why didn't we think of that? And then, of course, as soon as I turned off the mic, I was like, oh, well, duh, we can't decrypt them, Anyways, that's the whole point. So domain support is an issue. Registrar support. You have to have a registrar that can put the DS key records, into the zone above you. And in the case of, say, maxyz.com, you have to get your DS records into COM. And so I don't have the authority, normally, to edit the top level root 13 name servers. So in order to do that, your registrar has to have permission to do that, and you have to have a registrar that supports that. I'm going to give a shout out to gkg.net. They are a registrar. They're pretty good pricing. They do privacy, and they do obviously they do DNSSEC. GoDaddy also does that. They try to. I haven't actually tried this with GoDaddy, but they do advertise it. I'm afraid they're trying to lock you into using their own DNS servers. Not 100% on that, but they may very well do that pretty well. Yeah. That what? I'm pretty sure they do support DNSSEC, yes. The registrar itself, well, you'd have to enable it. I don't know if you have to pay extra for it, but I do know that they have it, or at least advertise that they have it. Unless they pulled it off. I know they did have it. Okay. Crypto is hard. We kind of covered that with the with putting the hardware crypto cards in your machine. If you had to do this kind of math all the time, that could be difficult. Also, can you imagine how many, well, you don't have to generate random numbers here. Well, yeah, you do. Hold on. Trying to think on that. Never mind. I'm not going to think on that because then I won't think right. You do it for you have to have an IV for that? Shut up. No, it's you don't need an IV. Okay, I don't think. Anyways, return on investment. Why should I spend all this money to do DNSSEC in my house when the rest of the internet isn't supporting it? If I get a DNSSEC resolving name server, well, woo, I can go to maxyz.com and defcon.org, and I'm solid. But the rest of the internet's a complete wash as far as this goes. What about the other way? You can go ahead and add it to your zone. You can spend the time and money and energy to get this set up in your own DNS servers, and then what? Who's going to validate it? So this is a two-way street, which is why I need you guys to think this is fun and go try it yourself. And then finally, like I said, originally it took me a long time to figure out how to do this and even how to understand how it worked. Again, my Google foo may not be what it is. I'm much more at home in the command line, but I spent I had to read this page and then figure out how to do it from there, and then go and find out what I was missing on this part, and then go research that, and then repeat until I got all the answers. You have a question?
Sort of.
Okay.
Have you, with the content delivery networks, especially like Akamai,
Yep.
which seems to have a more robust system, have you seen a DNSSEC out of Akamai versus your own homegrown solution? Whereas Akamai might, DNSSEC sign some of the domains that they are actually hosting by some of the other domains, like if you host on your own, like you said with your own stuff.
I'm not sure I understood your question. I'm sorry. Akamai may go ahead.
Talk about root servers and signing all the way up and verifying the trust chain all the way up to the root server.
Yep.
But what if your domain is hosted by Akamai? Is Akamai DNSSEC signing your domain, and then you follow the chain from your domain to Akamai up to the root server?
No. Okay. So your question shows that I didn't clearly explain that. So let me clearly cover this up. So this top one is dot. Okay. This is com, and then this is maxy.com, maxyz.com. And if I had a third level domain like test.maxyz.com, it would be down here, and then I would have the DS record for it up here. Does that make sense?
If Moxie was hosted by Akamai, right, and then Akamai would sign Moxie, and then go up to .com and then .net.
No, so if they had maxyz.akamai.net, then yes, they would have to do that for me. But if it was, if they were just hosting my domain, if maxyz.com is a forwarder to them or something like that, then that's really a domain change, right? It goes from maxyz.com to 1345.akamai.net.
Well, I don't know, because with Cloudflare and some of these other domain or some of these other content delivery
Mm-hmm.
We're actually representing as more of a proxy to your web content. And so I wasn't sure if they're also, like, because some of these web content proxies are also acting as the domain registrars for the domains, if they're also providing the DNSSEC that we believe come from .mil, like army.mil, are actually being provided by Akamai.mil, or Akamai hosting services and proxy services.
The only time I've ever seen, and I've never actually used Akamai, but I have used several other CDNs in my days. The only time I've ever seen them do that is either where you set up a domain and they have an IP that you point to, or they have a domain of their own and then you just kind of redirect or use their name. And then if it's your third level domain, then you would be part of your chain here for your domain, and if it's theirs, then it'll be part of their chain. And so if you're, and then as to whether or not Akamai is actually signed or not, I don't know the answer to that. Akamai is not something I notice normally while I'm on the internet anyways, so that would be kind of hard for me to answer without researching their domain. If we had internet access, it's easy to tell, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. Yeah, no problem. So what tools are out there to do this? And Windows, I have to give them credit too. Windows 2012, there's a video I can share with people that it's this other guy from Windows who's like in charge of their DNS doing a talk about how they do it. And maybe he explains it better than I do. I don't know. Hopefully you guys all get it. If not, tell me where I went wrong and I'll answer any questions. What he does is in Windows 2012 they have NSSEC 3. It's a so it's pretty easy to do in Windows 2012. You do of course have to get a registrar. You do have to have a valid domain that's as I said, and you have to submit your DS record from there. A couple other names in the Linux world, Bind 9.7 up. 9.7 supported with look-aside only, if I remember correctly, and you can have your own, but it won't do like manage rollover of domain keys and stuff like that. Unbound is a replacement for Bind. I never heard about it until I started researching this. The pun being obvious because Bind and Unbound. Power DNS also supports it. Signing tools. These are pretty obvious. Well, no, they're not obvious. What am I talking about? DNSSEC tool is a suite of tools that you install on your Linux box, and then it'll just. I'm gonna show you that in a minute, actually. That shows you that lets you sign your zones. Windows 2008 R2 and Windows 2012 have that built in. OpenDNSSEC is actually an interesting model. They actually are a proxy, and what they do is they sign your zone and then sign your zone, and then you actually talk to them instead. As I understood it, I didn't actually get that set up, but that was the explanation as I read it. And then there's a couple browser plugins, as I mentioned earlier. I flipped this slide just because I want to make sure I said the name right. But it's DNSSEC Validator for Firefox and Chrome, same name. They work slightly differently, but you basically just get a little green box up in your URL window, and it says, "You're good," or "You're not." What's up? No. Unless you have a resolving name server that understands how to do DNSSEC, then you're not.
That's something that I have set up on my local machine then. Are there DNS servers out there, like publicly available and everything?
Well, Comcast has one, but I don't know of anybody who's offering a DNSSEC validating service. So, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe somebody could do that. I would obviously be up for some attacks and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right, how do I make it talk to Debian.org using DNSSEC?
I'll show you in a second, actually. How about that? Because I'm about to, the talk is I'm using Backtrack and Debian, so it's pretty easy. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So here we are, actually. That was quick. So sit back and watch me demo. Real quick, before I move out of this, the tools I'll be using are Zone Signer, which is part of the DNSSEC tools, Bind. I'm not actually going to show you Roller D because it's kind of pointless, but what it does, zone signing key, the DNS key the key signing key signs the two zone signing keys. It manages that roller for you. If you're not paying attention, it'll just roll them over. It's pretty awesome. All right, that's the Backtrack client. So I got a domain set up. Let me show you the server. Can everybody see that pretty well? The first time I did this talk, I did it all in CLI, and people were like, "What? My eyes!" You know. So I got it all up in X and made the font much bigger. And so, okay. Real quick, I just have a myexample.com. I'm just going to query this locally, and this is just as dumb as you could get. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it's pretty simple. DNS installation bottom. I'll show you the files in a second. I have 2 records that I get right away. I have put an IPv4 and IPv6 address in there. Both of those are silly, so they're both on the private space for 127.0.0.0. How many zeros did I say? 3 zeros /8. All right. So my configuration. Is as simple as saying I have this zone, myexample.com, and I have this is a master, meaning that it's not a slave, it's not pulling from anything else, and it reads from this file here, which is master_zone, and then in myexample.com we have what looks like a straightforward record, and nothing really exciting here. The serial is about the only interesting. That it's up to 13. That's because I kept playing when around. We have a name server record, a text record. That's SPF record for those who care about such things. There is a NS1. So this is an awesome zone. I mean, if this was on the internet, it'd be pretty cool. We don't have DKIM, but we could get there. Partly because I don't have a server. All right, so to actually generate generate my keys and to sign my zone, you run the command zone sign, and you option gen keys will actually generate the keys the first time, and then I hope you all realize this is this easy, right? So you type zone to tell it what zone you're talking about, because not everybody names their zone after their file, right? Some people have files named different than their zone. What did I do wrong? Oh, I didn't pass the file name. Finally, you put the file that you want to, and it did all the magic. If we look at that file now, in myexample.com.sign, you'll see we have tons of garbage. So our one little zone changed from, it automatically incremented the serial number, and then it put our SIG record, these record types. So we have our start of authority, got an RSIG, and we have our name, got its own RSIG, so on and so on and so on. Make sense? Any questions?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
That zone, do you have to re-sign it with zone?
If you change every time you change the zone, you have to run zone signer again. But you don't do the gen keys option again, because that will overwrite your keys. And it will just do all that for you. You do have to do an RNDC reload, though, for bind. Yeah?
Do you have to do it for each of the third-level domains, or only the second-level domain for which you control?
It depends on how you configure bind, actually. So that's kind of a complicated question. It is possible to say myexample.com, put like 1.2.3.4.5.myexample.com. One zone. If they're all part of the same zone as far as bind sees it, then no, you don't. But if you are going to do it, actually, I don't know the answer to that question as I think about it. I thought I did, but then I thought about it. I might try to actually resolve those. So, and since I've never done it, I'm going to say I don't have a clue. Yeah. Okay. That's a damn good question. In fact, let's do that just for shiggles. In fact, let's do both of those for shiggles. So we're going to set up, I'm going to edit my zone file again. I'm going to go ahead and update this to 15. Not that it really matters since we haven't done anything. And then I'm going to, what did I say, 1.2? Let's just do that. Oh, that's a name record. Okay? No, that's not. Make it 2. Let's make it 3. Okay, so I just added a new record. And then I called zone signer without the gen keys. And then if we look at our sign zone again, should see somewhere down at the bottom, unless I'm crazy. Okay. Yeah, it'll actually move it around because of that INSEC record thing I was talking about, where it'll go between trying to find what the next one is. So it does order the zone when it signs it. Okay, so it did add that. We'll test that in a second, see what it did. Okay? All right, so because of the way I had the zone set up, I'm actually pointed still at the regular. I guess I should show you that too. The regular old zone file, the original one, has not been changed in any way. I did just show you this actually. So yeah, all it does is make the new file, the .sign file. And then if you look at the .local, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to .signed. And then I'm going to, let me just show you real quick. If I do a dig plus DNSSEC myexample.com, and then look at 127.0.1. Oh, I did that wrong, sorry. We have no, there's no you don't see the R, SIG records and all that, right? It's just not there. And then now that we have that, I'm going to restart bind. And hopefully magic. We have all of our records there. So now we're not really done. All we've done is create a bunch of cryptographic nonsense that we want to be validated. But so far, all we've done is just sign them all, and so we can't really validate this. Any questions up to this point? Okay. So I'm going to flip to this server, which is on the same network. It's just a DNS server here, and I can do the same query now, and I can see a response. But what you don't see here is a validated domain response. You don't see the AD flag. Let me use the pointer here. So up in this are the flags. You see the flags. The flags means that's where the flags are, and we don't have an AD flag, so that means it's not actually validated. And one more interesting thing I think is if I ask localhost, let's see if how did I set that up. I believe that's this server. So I have sorry. I guess I don't have bind running here. Okay. So if I ask my own server, I get the same thing. Now technically, I can't actually get an authenticated domain from the server that's giving you the response, because that's kind of like self-signing your own domain. It's the same authority. So in order to get this to work, since we now actually have the internet here, or I don't have the internet here, what I'm going to do is we're going to make a trust anchor for myexample.com on this local name server, and then we'll query it, and it should be able to validate it. The first thing I want to show you, though, is a failure, because that's always fun. And so I actually have an old trust key that I made just the same way I showed you guys. And damn it. I need to use VI and make this faster. What's fun about this, though, is if I use this invalid record, I've told my name server that I do have a trust anchor that validates that domain. But when I query, I actually get a server fail. That domain doesn't even exist. Okay, so that's what you see when you have a valid signed zone, or it should be signed, but you get a response that doesn't match, and you can actually see that in the logs. But what the other thing, what I want to do next is I want to make it work, right? So you guys can all see the magic that those two letters AD, which means that we actually solved the problem. And so what you can do is you come over here, and you can get that out of the myexample.conf.signed. And let me maximize that so I can actually read it. And so this record here, this is the zone signing key, I'm sorry, the key signing key. And you grab this record. I'm going to put this just in a file and copy it over, which I've done before, as you can all tell, because I didn't want to do a demo and then.
Is this RSA encryption? What's the?
Well, it's actually up to you to configure it. So a lot of these numbers here, you have options. That's what the 3 and the 8 mean. They're the size, and I think they're the size and the record type. I know that one of them is the record. I'm pretty sure 8 is the record type. It could be the type of encryption and the type of hash. No, that doesn't make sense. They're just public keys. Let's see. It was go to hell. All right, so back to our trusted keys on here. We have myexample.com. I'm going to delete that. That go to hell, though, was with zeros for the O's. Yeah, it is. It's important to tell you what. No, I'm good.
It looks like YouTube, but it tastes really good.
It was mine was frozen earlier.
It's thawed out.
I think that looks good. All right, let's see if this works. Yes, I'm almost done. Okay. Unless people ask me a bunch of questions. In fact, if the magic happens, moment of truth, not only did we get a domain, but we see where I saw it on my screen.
It's there.
Ah, here it is. There's our AD. So we successfully did DNSSEC between two computers. Yeah. They said it was impossible. So when I called this DNSSEC today because of partly because I wanted to give you a status, which I think I have done. It's in pretty poor shape, and we need to get a lot better at it. I also called it DNSSEC today because, can you do it today? And I think, yeah, you can. Assuming you're not in in Russia, you pretty much can do it. And then, so that was pretty much it. It is usable. That's my summary slide, which I was already going on. It's not usable for everybody, as I said. If you're hosting like millions of domains, or for some reason you have a million records, I don't know who would do that. Say, you can't hear me?
Yeah, try the hand mic here. Yeah.
I could, but then I wouldn't be on the video. Sorry. So it's not, as I was saying, it's not usable for people with a bunch of domains. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, and there's a zillion of them, and this is why I can't think when I'm nervous. But when any company that gives you a third-level little domain, Flickr does that. Damn it, there's Tumblr. Tumblr is a great one. Thank you. See, brain not working. Useful. Yeah. So for most people, I think for all of us in our own personal domain, certainly we can do it. If you can try to evangelize this at your companies, please do. It's useful. It'll make the internet better. It'll mostly stop DNS cache poisoning. And so, that's it. If you want to contact me about any questions, if you want help setting this up, I'll be happy to work with you. There's some contact information. Finally, I've been growing a mustache. I don't know if you can see it. Kind of blends in my. I've been growing it since November 1st. It's for prostate and testicular cancer. And it's called, there's a link where you can donate money if you want to help men's health. Yeah.
Are you for or against prostate and testicular cancer?
I would say I'm against cancer of all kinds.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a loaded question. Yeah.
So one final hard question from me.
Okay. If you let me put the mic down, I can probably do hard questions. But sure, go for it.
So with Stuxnet, they've proven that with the update mechanism that they were able to spoof the MD5 hash by doing
You're talking about Flame, but yes.
Right.
Okay.
Flame, Stux.
Yep.
So are you also finding now, and maybe you haven't done this part in-depth research yet, that you can also do those same level MD5 hash birthday attacks against DNSSEC for domain validation?
Let's see, could you do that? How could you do that? Yeah, see, that's a hard question, and I don't know. I got to think of the chain. So essentially, the DS records are hashes, so they can be SHAs, they could be MD5. If they are MD5, then could you find a collision? Yeah. But I'm not sure how. You would have to, I guess, intercept COM. You'd have to intercept root, and you'd have to make sure that all those were invalid all the way down, right? I believe that's right. Again, if I wasn't speaking in public and feeling nervous, then I would be better to answer that. Yeah, what you got, Ransom? I don't have anything to drink. Oh, I do have a beer over here. Wait, what?
I can change that.
No, I got one over here. So. Yeah.
So, speaking of compromising domains,
Yes.
you said that the difference between your demo and the real world is that your registrar would have to submit your domain keys to the root server?
The com server, or well,
The com server.
your TLD, where you bought the what your domain is a sub of what they're selling.
Right. So when the U.S. government seizes a domain,
Yep.
how would DNSSEC help against this, or prevent it, or at all? Like, could they just create new DNSSEC keys for that domain?
You mean like they were trying to manipulate the domain?
Yeah, like Homeland Security steals a domain or seizes a domain.
Well, I really don't know what you're getting at, because if they have access to the root, they can do whatever the hell they want to too. So I mean, yeah, they can shut you off certainly, and they could set up DNSSEC on a alternate domain name server, and then set up the chain to go to that if they really wanted to do that. But at this point in time, that would be silly.
They use this to cut you off easier. All they have to do is just claim that your key isn't valid.
All they have to do is pull your NS server records out of the comm zone anyway, so it's not really that hard. I don't see this being any. I mean, I think it'd be just. You're probably right. It would be easier in the sense that you usually have 2 NS records and you'd only have 1 DS key, but it's not really that much of a difference. Yeah, Tom.
So I apologize if you already covered this, but in order for this stuff to really protect people against cache poisoning, particularly like in a man-in-the-middle situation,
Yeah.
your client has to, only work in the DNSSEC environment. It can't, if it's communicating with a non-secure DNS server, or it sees that the root is unsigned, it needs to say.
Yes. Everything has to be right on both sides.
I guess, so that my question is, is it possible that you can configure like Windows or Linux clients to operate that way?
Yes.
Yeah, so that.
You can, I personally, not on this laptop, this is my work laptop, but on my personal laptop, I run my own DNS server. I validate off that local DNS server. And go ahead.
Things are they that way by default today? That they assume that the root is signed?
Yeah, well, if you tell them that they're signed, and if they are not signed at all, there's no record for them, then you just get the record as is. You don't get the AD, right? You don't get the authenticated domain flag. So you would get the record, but you wouldn't know. It wouldn't give you obviously stuff that doesn't exist, and so you would get just an answer. However, if I go into my domain right now and I pull out all my DNS keys and RSIGs and stuff, my domain will go down. I mean, for me anyways. For no one else, but for me it would go down. Yeah.
Okay.
What's up?
Okay. Brandon, the most excellent Iron Geek will have this talk online very, very, very shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But where's your FAQ and your walkthrough?
My frequently asked questions in my walkthrough?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
You should make them
Okay.
and put them online.
A walkthrough of how to do this? Of the demo, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's,
That sounds like a good idea. Would that be something y'all would want to do?
I'm sorry I made it look too easy. Okay, yeah. It is easy. It's just very poorly documented. Yeah.
We'll fix that.
Okay. Yes.
What's the process for revoking keys with DNSSEC? Do you just like update to your new ones, or how do
Yeah,
you
you-
like XYZ?
That's a good point. And do I have time to cover that? It's not.
Yes.
Okay. So what you do is you have and that's why that whole stupid chain of you have a key signing key and a zone signing key. And very brilliant people came up with this, and me calling it stupid, they probably want to slap me. But it seems overly complicated, but it's really not. Or it has a purpose anyways. The key signing key signs your zone signing key. And so if you have to revoke your key signing key, which shouldn't happen very often, but if you're compromised, it could, then you'd have to re-sign your whole zone, submit your DS at your registrar. That would be bad, but it's bad anyways. Something happened that was, you're not supposed to use the key signing key that often. The only time you ever use it is to sign the zone signing keys. And that's really the division. The reason the zone signing keys, they recommend a failover. I don't know if you saw it if you go back and look at the demo, I guess. It's only valid for like 4 weeks. And the reason for that is because it's used to do asymmetric crypto, which is hard, and you're signing every zone in there. And so it's asymmetric would be a lot smoother, I think, but a lot stronger, definitely. And since it's asymmetric and you're signing every one of those zones as possible, people could figure out more information, get your private key essentially. So that's why you don't want it out there that long. Does that answer the question? The zone signing key. So the zone signing key, there's a daemon called Roller D, and Windows 2000 will, and 2000, sorry, Windows 2008 R2 and Windows 2012 will roll these over for you as well. But what they do is they follow like your zone signing key, and when it's set to expire, they automatically re-sign the zone with the other zones, the new zone signing key, and then expire the old one, add a new one, so on. Make sense? So zone signing keys change a lot. Key signing keys change. They should change about once a year, but they're probably going to end up changing about as often as you change your own personal GPG key or whatever, right? Yep. I wouldn't say that it has at all. Like I said, very few people, I think, and from what I can tell, very few people are using it at all. And in all honesty, as I said from the, earlier in the talk, this won't stop an attack in any kind of way. In fact, it will make sure the attack gets to you. Because what you're actually saying is, I really, really mean that this is my IP. I mean, I'm proving to you that this is my IP. Go ahead and send that to me, because this is who I am, right? So I don't think it would do anything to stop a malicious attack. But it certainly could stop something like DNS cache poisoning or man-in-the-middling, as Tom mentioned.
Those tools are still going to work?
It would still work, yes. If Mallory or Eve is in a network and you have DNSSEC set up and they've set up a DNSSEC validator, all you're really doing is saying, yes, here's my record, and yes, it's really real. This is really my IP. You're being in an odd situation, and that's it. I mean, the only thing I could think you could do is actually it'd be an advantage to not have it in that case, right? Because then you could DNS cache poisoning your attackers, and you can hack back, right? Yeah. Are you talking about Google?
No, it would not. No, it wouldn't. No. That's a whole different ball of wax.
I think is he talking about the BGP problem? Yeah. Well, it was and YouTube is on my Google. Okay, that's what I heard. It was Google, so maybe that's what I meant. Okay. It actually. Let me think about that. No, I guess it wouldn't. Yeah. You're going to go to the IP, and you're going to go. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Anything else? Okay, if anybody wants to ask me a question offline, I might be better at answering when I'm not with a mic. Sorry, thanks.